Start.
Good morning, students. Today I'm back again with the explanation of the chapter earthquakes that we have discussed in our previous class. In our previous class, we basically dealt with the meaning of an earthquake. We also highlighted the different varieties of causes that are responsible for causing earthquakes. And we also emphasized on the anatomy of earthquakes, where we emphasized on your S waves, your P waves, and your L waves, or your seismic waves, and also dealt with the definition of your seismic focus and your epicenter. Now today, in today's class, we will be emphasizing on the instrument that is utilized in order to measure the intensity of an earthquake. So the instrument I have made here on the diagram, here on the board also. The name of the instrument that is utilized in order to measure the earthquake is termed as a seismograph. It is also referred to as a seismometer. So the seismograph or a seismometer is the instrument that is utilized in order to measure the intensity of an earthquake. So you can turn to page number 63 there in your textbook, where we will be highlighting as to how the earthquake will be measured under the topic that is your seismograph. See, seismograph, the Richter scale and the Mercalli scale are used to measure the direction and the intensity of an earthquake. So you have two scales which can be utilized by which you measure the intensity of an earthquake by your seismograph. Now seismograph, the direction of movement of waves and the passage at a particular point is recorded by an instrument that is termed as a seismograph. This seismograph is also referred to as your seismometer. Okay, so seismograph or your seismometer is the instrument utilized in order to measure the intensity of an earthquake. Now see, have a look at this diagram. You can see a heavy mass in a form of a pendulum is basically been attached here in this instrument. Now why do we have this heavy mass here? Because it is resisting the motion of the earth. And on top of that, you can see this pendulum is basically been attached to the pen. Now this pen is basically being utilized in order to draw the direction of your earthquake. So automatic recording of your P waves, your recording of your S waves are basically highlighted here in this moving sheet of your tissue paper. So this diagram is basically the instrument utilized in order to measure your earthquake. So let's deal with the explanation of this diagram. So your pen vibrates with the earthquake waves. This pen I am talking about. It is vibrating with the earthquake waves, recording the movement on a traveling strip of paper. So this paper that you have here, this is your traveling strip of paper. So that paper is basically moving as the motion, as the seismic waves are hitting the region. Automatically, in a traveling sheet of paper with the help of the pen that you have here in the seismograph, automatically the motion is basically being recorded there. It also calculates the differences in the arrival of the P waves. About P waves, I have already dealt in the previous class. P waves are termed as your primary waves, or the first waves of an earthquake that can be recorded on a surface is your P waves. P waves are also termed as your push waves. So P waves are also recorded here in your traveling strip of paper, and followed by your S waves. Your S waves are termed as your secondary or your shear waves. So these are how your P waves and your S waves are basically recorded with the help of an instrument that is termed as your seismograph. The interval is then used to calculate the distance between the recording station as well as the epicenter. Now epicenter is also very important because vertically above your seismic focus, the point where your seismic waves are originating, on the surface you have the epicenter. Okay, so your distance between the recording station where you are recording the earthquake and your epicenter is basically recorded here in an interval. Is that clear? So this is your major instrument which you ought to highlight, and under this topic you ought to be aware about the definition of a seismograph. You ought to be aware about this diagram also, because sometimes they ask you to explain the instrument utilized in order to measure your earthquake with the help of a neat labeled diagram. Now under your seismograph, there are two scales. Now these are your scales utilized in order to measure your earthquake. First one is your Richter scale. I'm sure everyone, almost all the earthquakes that are hitting any part, any region of the world today are basically recorded by utilizing your Richter scale. But along with your Richter scale, we do have your Mercalli scale as well, about which in gist will be highlighted here on this topic. Richter scale and Mercalli scale. Both this instrument measure the intensity. Intensity here means the amount of energy released during an earthquake. and your Mercury scale. The Richter scale measures the power of an earthquake on a scale between 1 to 9. So please underline that. That is very, very important because this is the most utilized method. Okay, the method that we utilize on a regular basis in order to measure your earthquake is your Richter scale. So under your Richter scale, the power of an earthquake is measured in a scale group that is between 1 to 9. It measures the absolute intensity with your mathematical precision. That is the reason why this method is preferred more over the Mercury scale. Okay, the Mercury scale grades the earthquake on the basis of the observed effects on a 12-point scale. Now you should be noting down the distinction here. For your Richter scale, the scale is between 1 to 9, and with mathematical precision, it is basically measuring the intensity of an earthquake. Whereas for your Mercury scale, you have your 12-point scale, and here by observing the effects, you are measuring your earthquake. So when you compare both this Mercury and your Richter scale, the most utilized method in order to measure your earthquake is your Richter scale method. The Richter scale is the most commonly used method. So they ask you as to why your Richter scale is more commonly used here. Because Richter scale is utilizing your mathematical precision, or your earthquake is calculated by utilizing your mathematical precision, unlike using your observation effect method by your Mercury scale. Thus, an earthquake wave of magnitude, each point upward from 1 represents 10-fold increase in the amplitude of your shock waves. You can underline the term amplitude there. It's a term, I'm sure you people are aware about this term amplitude, and we utilize this regularly in your physics portion. Okay, so amplitude of a shock wave, you can underline the term amplitude there. Amplitude basically means the maximum extent of your vibration that is basically being caused by an earthquake. So automatically here they say, thus an earthquake wave of magnitude 6 will be 10 times stronger than your magnitude 5. So 1 to 9 is there. From 1 to 2, 10 times increase is there. Indian force that's basically been applied when your earthquake is basically hitting that particular region. So they have cited, thus an earthquake wave of magnitude 6 is 10 times more stronger than the magnitude of an earthquake that is hitting a region that is reading at magnitude 5. They have cited many examples here. Okay, many examples here hitting the state of India, hitting our neighboring states like Nepal and all examples, and they have also given the measurement of an earthquake here, and all this measurement are taken utilizing your Richter scale. Now the Assam earthquake in India that was recorded in 1897 was of magnitude 8.7 magnitude. The Gujarat earthquake of 2001 had a magnitude only of 7.7 on a Richter scale. That means 10 times less than the Assam's earthquake. Okay, 10 points less than the Assam's earthquake. Yet it caused great damage. In Nepal, an earthquake measuring 7.8 on a Richter scale, you can analyze this example, and this is one of the recent examples that you can cite on the category of your earthquake. 7.8 on a Richter scale occurred on April 25th, 2015, which killed over more than 8,000 people and injured more than 21,000. So it made many people homeless, and the entire village flattened across many districts of Nepal. It also destroyed centuries-old buildings, including your UNESCO World Heritage Site in your Kathmandu Valley. So UNESCO, you can underline the term UNESCO there. You can also write down the abbreviation of UNESCO. UNESCO stands for U stands for your United, N stands for your Nation, Education, Null Scientific and your Cultural Organization. So this organization has found 7 World Heritage Sites there in the state of Nepal alone in your Kathmandu Valley. So you can see the Darbar Square there in your city of Kathmandu. Okay, automatically take into account your Dharara monuments and all. They all come under the category of your World Heritage Sites. Your ancient monuments, your buildings and all. That was totally destroyed and dismantled by the earthquake that hit the state of Nepal in the year 2015 on April 25th. And the magnitude of this earthquake was 7.8 on a Richter scale. So that devastating this earthquake was for the state of Nepal. Many aftershocks also occur throughout the state of Nepal at an interval of 15 to 20 minutes. A major aftershock occurred on May 12, 2015 with a magnitude of 7.3 on a Richter scale, which killed more than 200 people and injured 2,500 people. So these are your examples of your regions that are basically been hit by an earthquake, as to how this natural disaster is so devastating in nature. And after this earthquake in this region, the instrument that was basically been utilized in order to measure all this earthquake automatically is your seismograph, and they basically prefer utilizing your Richter scale method in order to measure the intensity of an earthquake. So this is the topic that we want to highlight under the measurement of an earthquake. So I hope everyone understood seismograph as an instrument, or the instrument or the method that is utilized by which to measure your earthquake. Now after that, we will be emphasizing on the effects. Now earthquake as a region. Now there are different kinds of effects or the consequences, or you can also use the term impacts of an earthquake. Now generally an earthquake is an example of a natural disaster, and as mentioned earlier in the previous class, any natural disaster you name, it just brings about destruction and devastation of life and property. But under your effects of your earthquake, we also want to emphasize on the good effects at the same time, not bad effects. So let's deal with the good effects first, followed by your bad effects. Now effects of the earthquake in geological terminology. Okay, earthquakes are the part of the endogenic forces. Now you want to be aware about all this term, geological, the literal meaning of the term geological, you can write it down. Geological basically means the study of Earth's physical features. Okay, then you can see your endogenic forces. Endo means something inside the Earth's surface. So it is formed occurring beneath the surface of the Earth. So these are the forces that are operating beneath the surface of the Earth. So according to this geological terminology, when you see earthquakes are considered to be good in order to maintain the shape of the Earth, different varieties of your landforms are basically being created because of your earthquake. So under your effects, you want to emphasize both on your constructive part, both on your destructive part. So according to the geological terminology, okay, the endogenic forces that is operating inside the Earth's surface, which is responsible for causing earthquake, is also responsible for bringing about good effects on the Earth. So let's deal with that under your new topic. Now effects of the earthquake. Effects of an earthquake, we have good effects. You also have your bad effects of earthquake. Effects of earthquake. Okay, first one is your constructive effects. So under your constructive effects, the first point we are going to emphasize will be your energy release. Okay, constructive effect, energy release. Earthquake helps the Earth to release the stored up energy that is there inside the surface of the Earth. The majority of the earthquakes occur around the plate margin. The energy that is released when your earthquake is hitting a region is allowing your Earth to be kept in a good shape. That means the energy that is released during an earthquake's natural disaster is helping your Earth to be in a good shape. So this becomes your first primary constructive effect of your earthquake. I hope people understood the constructive effect, first one. Second one is your creation of landforms. Now different varieties of your landforms too are created by an earthquake. Let's deal with that and find a suitable example of one of this category. On account of both your vertical and your horizontal movement, okay, lateral displacement of the Earth's crust, earthquake may raise or lower the parts of Earth, especially near the seashore, or especially near the coastal areas and all. Now Sagami Bay in Japan was uplifted 200 meters in the year 1923 when the state of Japan was hit by an earthquake. That means Sagami Bay wasn't present there in the state of Japan before 1923. But Sagami Bay was basically created by the earthquake, okay, that hit the state of Japan in the year 1923. 2023. So creation of Sagami Bay is also one primary constructive effect, that is allowing your creation of a landform there as a result of an earthquake. Landslides triggered by earthquake causes formation of your lakes that has happened at many places in the Himalayan region. As we all know, the Himalayan belt is considered to be very vulnerable to your earthquake because it is on the high side of your seismic zone area. So there are so many earthquakes that are hitting the region, which is basically being followed by your landslides, and that landslide is responsible for creating many lakes there in the Himalayan region. So at present also you have many lakes there in the Himalayan region that is basically been created by your earthquake. So that too falls under the category of your constructive effects of earthquake. Now these are your two major constructive effects of earthquake. Every coin has got two sides. Along with the constructive effects, you also want to emphasize on your destructive effects. So let's deal with that. Destructive effects of earthquake. We should not forget at the end that earthquake is still an example of a natural disaster. Any natural disaster you name, it is just associated with destruction, devastation of your life and property. So under your destructive effects, we'll be dealing with your disaster that is caused by your earthquake. First one, simple one, collapse of structures. Collapse of structures like buildings, like institutions. For example, in Nepal's earthquake, in the year 2015, there were many structures, there were many buildings, there were many monuments, there were many temples and all. That was totally dismantled and destroyed. So your destruction, or your collapse, or your fall of your structure, the Dharara monument there in the state of Nepal, totally collapsed when it was hit by earthquake in the year 2015. So your first primary destructive effect of an earthquake is your collapse of your structures. Let's deal with that. Human beings have settlements in any active volcanic earthquake zones. Often these houses and structures collapse, causing great loss of property. For example, the destruction caused by your tsunami, destruction caused by an earthquake, all fall under the category of destruction caused by the earthquake. Second one is your submersions. You can align the term submersions there. Write down submersions. B-M-E-R-G-E-N-C-E. Submersions. Align it. Okay, submersions basically means your gradual sinking of the land. Okay, upliftment is also taking place in some areas. Likewise, how your Sagami Bay was basically created there in your state of Japan. Sometimes your sinking of your land is also taking place, but at a very gradual level. That is termed as submersions. Now submersions. The forces of upliftment and subsidence also causes submergence of the coastal parts. For example, Dwarka in Gujarat, which is now lies submerged under the sea. Now Dwarka, I'm sure if you belong to your Hindu religious group, I'm sure everyone is aware about your city of Dwarka that used to flourish. Dwarka is very famous because it was the region or the kingdom that was basically been ruled by our Lord Krishna. Dwarka was present in the past. It is located there in the coastal region there in the state of Gujarat, just below your Gulf of Kutch. Dwarka is no longer present here. It is submerged underwater because the process of submergence took place. I tell you, upliftment is also taking place at the same time the submergence, where gradual sinking is also taking place. And as a result of the submergence, okay, your part of Gujarat there on the western coast of India, Dwarka, is now submerged under the sea. That is your Arabian Ocean. That is also one primary example of your destructive effect of an earthquake. Now the third one, course of a river. Course of a river. Now course means basically a path that the river is following while it is flowing. Sometimes the course of the river is basically getting diverted by an earthquake. For example, an earthquake has hit a region. Okay, there's a landslide that's followed by an earthquake. That landslide is blocking that river, creating a natural dam, and basically forcing your river to change its course. So it is bringing about flood there in the other region. Okay, so flood we talk about, landslides we talk about, automatically all are associated with destruction and devastation. And this landslides are also basically being caused by an earthquake. Your floods are also basically being caused by an earthquake. river in the past. They have thus rendered many areas unsuitable for agricultural production and your irrigational facilities, because most of the irrigational facilities basically depend on your river water, because they are drawing water from your rivers under your perennial canals. So they are also impacted in a negative manner when the course of the river is basically changed. That river might be a lifeline there in that particular region which is driving agricultural production. Supposing the course of the river is going to change, agricultural production could also be hampered in a negative manner. Fourth one, danger to human life. Now this is also one destructive effect. Danger to life, human life. So many people are dying. So many people are dying because of your earthquake. Because your life is basically being lost when you are hit by an earthquake, collapse of your buildings and all. That is causing different varieties of your natural calamities. For example, there is a Nepal's earthquake. Thousands and thousands of people were basically being killed by a Nepal's earthquake. That is why the earthquake is considered to be very, very dangerous for your human life. See, many severe earthquakes in the past have killed hundreds and lakhs of people. They died on the account of house collapse under the weight of falling trees, poles, bridges and structures. Landslides and flood caused by earthquake will also kill people and animals. Then you have your landslides. Because of this landslide, the course of the river is basically being changed. Okay. On top of that, landslide is also an example of a natural disaster that itself is bringing about different varieties of your destructive effects on the life that is existing in that particular region. The shock waves during an earthquake destabilizes the loose rock buildings that is leading to your landslides. Then you have fires. During an earthquake, fire breaks out into an inflammable material, thrown out broken gas pipes, burning of the gas cylinders, besides damaged oil refineries and live electric wires catch fire and damage life and property in the township and your factory complexes. So automatically here you can include fires to under the category of your destructive effects. And this forest fires that are caused there in the particular region are basically killing so many people and your animals. Tsunami is also an earthquake that is associated with an earthquake that is taking place in your water bodies. So tsunami is caused, and the people here in India, especially the ones who are residing there in the southern part of India, witness as to how destructive tsunami can be. So tsunami is also triggered by an earthquake. A tsunami is a large destructive ocean wave that can be generated by disturbances that rapidly displaces a large mass of water, such as an earthquake, volcanic eruption, landslide or meteorite impact. However, the most common cause is an undersea earthquake. So when you use the term tsunami, T-S-U-N-A-M-I, tsunami is caused by your earthquake. It is your undersea earthquake. It is an undersea earthquake. The name tsunami is from the two Japanese words, su meaning and nami meaning harbor and your wave. That means the wave that has been created in the coastal region or the wave that has been created in your harbor is termed as your tsunami. So tsunamis are your harbor waves, and automatically your region, especially then the Pacific Ocean, are your primary areas where the tsunami is bringing about maximum destruction and devastation. Okay, in 2004, they cited an example there in textbook. 2004, Indian Ocean earthquake triggered a series of your tsunamis on December 26, 2004 that killed more than 2,75,000 people. 1,68,000 alone in Indonesia, making it the deadliest tsunami recorded in history. And tsunami, one of the most destructive effects of your earthquake, tsunami, because it is killing thousands and thousands of people. And the last one is your flash flood. Last one. This is your sixth one. Then we have the rubber. Then we have the seventh point here. That is your flash floods. Strong waves damage dams and embankments and the water stored the spread, causing flash flood. Besides your debris or your waste that is basically being created by the accumulation of your remains of your structures produced during an earthquake blocks the flow of the river. The river flow gets diverted from its original course. This diversion causes flash flood and causes damage to life and property. So this flash flood, you can directly relate it with your course of your river. Your course of your river is also getting changed because of your earthquake. Your flash flood is also caused because of your earthquake. Now let me cite the relationship between your flash flood and your course of the river. Because of an Your landslide, the accumulated waste of your soil and different varieties of your material is blocking your river, creating a natural dam that is responsible for changing the course of the river. Now, when the course of the river is changed, the river water is flowing somewhere else, leading to your flash flood, which is again associated with your destruction and your devastation. So these are your effects which are related to your earthquake, and all these effects basically is associated with destruction and your devastation. So with this, we end both the constructive as well as the destructive effects of